right, thanks everybody for joining our Twitter space today. I'm your host, Mike Coyle, and with us today is Frank Dumas, the COO of St. George Eco Mining, which can be found on the CSE under SX and the OTC under SXOOF. Thanks, Frank, for joining me today.
Oh, happy to be here again.
Yeah, these Twitter spaces are becoming quite a thing here, so I appreciate the time you take out of your day to answer our questions. So you've been a little quiet lately, on social media, and that's not characteristic of you. But I also know that you've been doing a lot of business behind the scenes, and you recently spent some time in Baie-Comeau. So why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown of what you were doing in Baie-Comeau, and we'll start there.
I would say we're being quiet in general. Currently, we're in a period where a lot of material things is being worked on behind the scene, and we have no idea what's going to come out first and of any short-term timeline for these things. So I think that it's normal reflex to just be quiet so that we don't put ourselves in a corner or cause problems for the company. We actually went to Baie-Comeau, Enrico and I, last week. And it's too early for fishing, so you would assume we've done other things. And had a few meetings with the city, with their urban planning department. Also had the Pessimit hockey tournament that we sponsored. So I went there for the protocol launch of the tournament. And people have to understand that whatever we do in Baie-Comeau or in Julie or in Manicouagan, on the exploration side and on the battery side, we're always on the ancestral land of the Pessimit community. So we want to stay closer to them, have let's say, a good neighbor or even good partner relationship with them. So these two things happen, and obviously we had to go there because we were ready to make an offer or to finalize on a large piece of land for the phase 2 of the deployment or development and deployment that we're planning for Baie-Comeau. And we were still trying to finalize also on the phase 1 building that's in the other sector. So we've seen so far 3 buildings there. We're looking at, probably making some offers in the coming days. In regard to the buildings, the land that's moving into a different pace. This land that we've identified and that the city identified for us is into a special industrial park that has access to special grants from the different governments. And it is a very, very interesting, it's a large package of grants and advantage, tax waiver and stuff like that for at least a decade. And the area we're looking at has been specifically identified either for battery making, for critical metal processing, or for battery recycling. And we had to jump through hoops a bit to convince all the different partners in that park that we are worthy of the piece of land that we wanted there, and that by selling it to us, they're not putting themselves as a disadvantage for future projects that could come.
Excellent. So you just mentioned phase 1, phase 2. Can you kind of expand on your strategy?
Well, here's the thing, is that we have identified a perfect place, a perfect spot for all the first phase operation. And when I say first phase operation, is getting the battery in, getting them discharged, going through the different shredders or different separators, getting the material all separate. So that means like the aluminum, the copper, the battery carbon, the steel, all being set aside and ending up with the black mass. Now that's really phase 1 of the process. And then we do the black mass depending on the chemistry of the black mass. We have different, I would say, different variation of, I don't want to use the term variant, but we have different variation for how we recover the metals out of the black mass. The black mass can be compared also to a concentrate. So when you get to that other phase of recovery, a lot of the installation we're going to set in place this year can also be used for different type of mineral concentrate coming straight up from a mine or from other source, not necessarily from batteries. So the second phase, like I said, it is the for Baie-Comeau in particular, it is the smelter. It's the everything electric, so it's all electric arc, the oven, and these things that will recover or separate the cadmium, the nickel, and the cobalt.
Yeah. Okay. Let me jump in here quickly. So just based on a couple of your recent tweets and what you've just said, phase one, phase two, let's talk about phase one a little bit more in depth here. Am I understanding this right? So what you want to do is you want to take your modular approach, put battery shredding in several different locations, and then ship your black mass to more key locations that are set up around urban populations. Am I reading this right?
I could probably go more in details because I don't think it's material much. It's important to understand, but it's not material in the sense that we would need to put a press release and alt the stock in the next 5 minutes. But the first phase is well under control in our case. We know we have a relationship with different equipment makers. We know which equipment makers we're going to do business with. We know the lag time between, okay, we've give them a deposit and this equipment is delivered at the port of Baie-Comeau. And it's a pretty fast timeline because there's really just a few small equipment that are really like the spice from our process, I would say, that are not off the shelf. And a lot of the equipment we have even there is off the shelf equipment, but it's been used by other industry for other purpose. And we just need to do some customization on it. And we're going after some of the biggest equipment makers that have their own financing arm that can finance their own equipment. And I would more than happy to do it. So what we want to do with them is to have 3 circuit. So imagine 3 circuit being shipped in Baie-Comeau in containers and being deployed from the time that they've been ordered to the time that we deploy them. They're telling us 90 days, plus whatever construction, adjustment, installation on site that needs to be done. In this time of COVID and supply chain issues, I would probably give ourselves a month or two of contingency. And you don't know where it's going to jam. It could jam at a custom. It could jam, with the transport suppliers. But it's pretty fast. So the idea for us now is to have these modular. Right now, it's conceptual because we've never done it to this size. We're looking at 600 tons per hour. That's more than what even Baie-Comeau day one will have more capacity than what the whole industry is able to absorb. There's not enough batteries right now in North America to supply full-time factory of this size. It's gonna.
Why go so big?
It's gonna change. It's gonna change. Okay. And what we want to do is to run 2 circuits for 2 different chemistry and have a third circuit that we use either for shutdown, maintenance, upgrades, so that we're never totally shut down, but that we can also run tests with new chemistry. I'll said that before in discussion with you and with others, but nobody knows where this industry is going to be in 3 years, not even 10, 15 years. That would be literally economical fiction to try to say, I know where it's going to be. People assume that the beta format would be everywhere by 1985, and it just dwindle and disappear. So you want to make sure that you have some margin and you're able to adjust and adapt as we go. Even as we install the circuit, if we realize that the industry is slowly moving to another direction, we can adjust. So now, this whole thing, it's not just equipment. There's a bunch of issues in this industry. One is manpower, and the second, and retaining the manpower. The other issue is getting your hands on batteries and black mass from other black mass producer. Now, this is in part related to location, but it's also related to your margin. It's related to the type of control you can have and the way you can decentralize your operation. So you don't want to have the full operation in one place because it's going to be cost prohibitive. You could go to a place that decide that you need to be on site to have access to the recovery of or the recycling of the batteries from the municipalities, the cities, the government. I'll give you an example. We're looking at Iceland right now, and I think we've said that that's part of the place where we have good relations with the government. So we're talking to them, and we want to see if we can put in place a program where we try to get as close as possible to a 100% recycling of the batteries. They're worse than we are in Canada and the US right now. Canada and the US, we're around 4% of the battery recycle. And when I say recycle, it's basically taken off, and brought to some centralized storage with agencies that are either non-for-profit, subsidized by the government, or just owned by the government. And you obviously we want to go into that 96%, but if you go to Iceland, they're even less than that 4%. So I'll bring it to a 50% recovery or recycling. Even if the country is maybe the size of Ottawa or Quebec, it would still be more batteries than what is recycled currently in Canada on any given year. But bringing all the equipment, the acid, the resin, the different type of equipment we need would be cost prohibitive. But the first phase, which costs less than $5 million per plant, and that includes a few other things that I need to tell you also, but that $5 million plant plus whatever building or location that you have to acquire can be put in 20 different places. And it just goes through the batteries, separate, put aside the aluminum, the copper, the steel, which in Iceland, with the amount of aluminum smelter there is, you're going to find somebody to take the aluminum. And they all want to take this aluminum at a premium because it's an aluminum that comes with carbon credit reduction certificates, because it's not a first fusion aluminum. It's a lot less energy for them to just add it, and it's a good quality aluminum. So that's the same thing for the copper. Now suddenly you have material that you can even import batteries from other countries around that don't necessarily have the social acceptability to have a that type of plant. There is still some stigmas coming from storing batteries in different countries because of the hazardous nature of some of these batteries. Some of these chemistry are toxic. Some other chemistry could explode or could catch fire because they always have some type of a memory charge in it, even if you think they're totally discharged. So Iceland is perfect to have a first phase plant where we sell the aluminum and the other stuff on site, which is anywhere between 60 to 80% of the mass and the volume of the batteries. And then that 20% left, which is your concentrate, your black mass concentrate, then you can ship to different plants. So you'll ship definitely the cadmium nickel to Baie-Comeau. That's going to be the place in the world where we're going to do that separation, that recovery for these metals. But nothing precludes us, nothing is barring us from shipping to the US, shipping to Europe, or elsewhere in Ontario and Quebec to do the lithium iron battery, for example. So that black mass can go elsewhere. But there's one thing that's universal. That first 60 to 80% of the mass and the volume, it's all aluminum, copper, plastics, that also we have a way to handle. Carbon, which is graphite, cheap graphite or bad quality graphite, but carbon batteries, and steel. So copper and steel. So this can all take, somebody's going to take that in pretty much every country where you go. And right there's a good margin of profit. We could stop the process there and sit on the black mass for years and still be profitable.
This is a really interesting strategy, and it's kind of coming together in my mind. And the more you speak, it's making more sense. So I'm just going to clarify a little bit of what you said into a nutshell here. So you want to have the segregation of the batteries and the production of black mass spread out all over the place, whether that's Nevada, Iceland, Europe, Ontario, Quebec, doesn't matter. You're going to produce the black mass and then ship the black mass. I mean, that's got to be a huge amount of savings in just your transportation costs. alone. If you're taking 60 to 80% of your battery, selling it locally, and then only shipping the black mass, this is a really nice strategy. So have you
If
identified any?
you're going to look at breaking even in certain countries for certain type of cheaper chemistry at that stage. So you already breaking even. Your profit stays in the black mass. In other case, you're actually making money even before you touch the black mass. And that's the majority of the case. Now, we've looked at this, and I think people need to understand also the mindset. Because we've seen the people that, I would say, I don't want to call them the competition, but the people that will do something adjacent to what we do. And the market calls them competitors. To this day, I don't see competition to what we want to do specifically. But we've not disclosed that in total, and we're not going to disclose it just yet. So it's okay if people think like that for now. But a lot of these people are putting big money in infrastructure and in buildings and technology for an industry that we don't know, how it's going to be, what's going to be the chemistry, what's going to be the availability of different type of batteries in 5 years from now. So having these specialized centers for the tech plant makes a lot more sense for us because, for example, Baie-Comeau having access to cheap electricity is allowing us to do all the separation of the nickel and cobalt, but can also allow us to do separation of nickel from material coming from a mine, for example. And we're going to have excess capacity there at the beginning. We can also do spodumene processing in Baie-Comeau because we'll have access megawatt are very cheap. I think that's one of the important step, and maybe in the deployment we're also talking first, second, third step, and we should touch that a bit. Is that we're buying a land that's going to be our final first phase operation. So all the shredding, the separation, and the production of black mass. Maybe down the road a few other things, but the first building that we're buying in the old, let's call it the Eastern Industrial Park, is in the Eastern sector. The Eastern sector in Baie-Comeau, it's important people need to know that in Quebec, most of the electricity comes from Hydro-Quebec, so it's nationalized. But Baie-Comeau was an exception all these years. They still own their own electrical company with some excess megawatts, and they're really using it to attract business. So they're able to give us rates under the rate of Hydro-Quebec. Even some of the best rates, even the best rate of Hydro-Quebec cannot beat the rates that they're giving. They also can give us allocation, which is a lot more complicated with Hydro-Quebec and can take 6 months to 24 months just to get connected to the network or to the grid. Sorry. Now, there's also an advantage. A normal connection for that type of power that we need in the second phase, the phase where we do the separation of the nickel and the cobalt, or where we could do, for example, hydrolysis of spodumene to do hydroxide lithium, for example. That connection or these connections will cost easily up to $3 million. Right now, with the discussion we have with Baie-Comeau, you can put a zero aside that cost. So they are taking care of it to attract us there. And so what we want to do is, within a few months, this summer, we're going to set up the first phase in the old industrial park, in buildings that are already built. And we're going to run 2 circuits there for now, doing black mass, producing oil. When our building is ready, being a year and a half later, in between the 2 sectors, it's going to be a bigger building, allowing us to store a lot more material. And we're going to move the circuit. We're going to install a third circuit there to start, and then we're going to move 1 circuit at a time from the other place. When the move is done, the building or the plant that will be between the 2 sectors will be the one that will produce the black mass. This one is directly connected to the train track that goes to the port, that goes to the ferry, or goes to the boats. Now, from there, we'll move the black mass either outside of a region, if it's a black mass that we expect to process through a tech plant or to a recovery plant elsewhere, or we're going to move the black mass that's for the nickel-based batteries to the whole sector, because by that time we're probably going to have put down the building, build a new building there with the electrical allocation and the electrical connection we have there, and we're going to have our foundry in that sector.
Foundry, I like the sound of that. So this is all going to tie in together. So this is kind of going towards my next question. This ties in together with the steel industry. I think that's a given Enrico's background and how he's kind of played things out from a metallurgy perspective. But where do you see, how does the hydrogen and the fertilizer fit into this? Is that going to be in Baie-Comeau as well?
Maybe not. And we're looking at, we're ambivalent a little bit on this, because we're looking at the benefit of having it there. Now, we'll be producing plastics. Plastic is big volume with barely any weight to it. And we can convert the plastic with the technology that we have access to into biodiesel. Now, biodiesel could be used locally, but we can also do the second conversion and use that biodiesel and convert it into hydrogen. So now it's just a matter of saying who's going to buy it from us. Because you don't produce hydrogen and then have a backyard full of hydrogen tank if you don't have a buyer already in mind to buy it. There is buyer for a certain amount of the hydrogen there. But is it worth it in terms of volume at this point? We still don't know yet. It might be worth it, and even just in terms of price, it might be worth it for us to be in Contrecoeur or Hamilton with the hydrogen plant and then move back the excess biodiesel, or even sell the biodiesel locally. And that we know the industry will take it. So we don't know if we're going to have the hydrogen in Baie-Comeau at the beginning. It could come at a fourth phase and be brought there, or we could just produce our hydrogen elsewhere in Quebec and truck it or ship it by train to Baie-Comeau for the small quantity that we might need over there.
Fair. Okay, I want to jump in here again because you're kind of touching on something else that I wanted to pick your brain about. So you get this first phase set up, and you're ready to start producing black mass, but you need material. So your initial, what you've put out in press releases is you want to engage the communities, and I think building these modular units to do so within urban centers is a great strategy at attracting people to actually.
One important aspect also, a lot of countries do treat batteries as hazardous material, and getting batteries across the border in some countries is very complicated. While we can move black mass with, probably just in our carry-on luggage.
Okay, so this kind of goes to my question. So, off the bat, you're probably not going to be able to have a huge volume of batteries right from the get-go. So, have you identified places that you can source black mass from? Are you going to maybe use hard rock sources,
we're getting in a question that I cannot answer. Some of which because I don't know the answer, some of which because I know the answer, but I don't want anybody else to know it for many reasons.
No, that's fair.
But I would still say that yes, in general, I can still answer generally. There is organism out there that I've seen some people on Twitter associate with us. It's true. There is interaction. The mandate of these organizations, one being financed by different provincial government in Canada and a lot of state in the US, the mandate of that particular organization is to recycle batteries and to, I'd say, educate people or incentivize people to recycle their batteries. The more people, even if ourselves, we go and we do initiative and we recycle batteries from place they've never been able to recycle before, or from community they've never been able to reach until now, it's good for them. There's still a collaboration. That means that our statistics, our tonnage will end up being under their own statistics of what's been recycled in the jurisdiction where they operate. So are we going to do initiative? Yes. We already spoke with school boards. One wanting to do a recycling initiative with a big school. They're already recycling something like a quarter to half a ton right now, and they're doing it like really just as a feel-good thing at this point. And we're going to them and say, look, the margin that we have, we can look at some type of a ratio where we give you some money for your extracurricular activity, for the Little League baseball, for the badminton team or swimming team of the school based on whatever you collect. So that means that just not only what the student brings to the school and put them in the buckets that we provide, but if you have a team, you have the Boy Scout of America or the Girl Scout of America and go door to door, they could go and tell people, look, here's a pamphlet. This is what can be recycled. We're coming back in 2 weeks. We're using that to finance our charity. And these 3 old drill, or these 3 old portable saw batteries that you kept just in case, that don't fit on any models anymore, that you have in your gazebo, we'll take them. And we'll take all your spent battery. So the idea is to try to either collect every month in every city in North America and get these battery to us, or to have initiative like that they'll go out, and we've made some projection, and we've compared also with some initiative that's been done locally by charities so far, and we could probably get more battery than we need. At the end of the day, we'll get quantities that when that comes back to the market, it's extremely lucrative for us. So,
Frank, let me just say, I'm very pro for this idea. I think it's an awesome idea because not only does it give you a solution to bring in these batteries, but it also encourages people to actually recycle their batteries as where they wouldn't before, because there's no place to really bring them aside from.
We're going to get a portion of the 4% that's currently recycled. That's in the mandate of these organizations, and that's in the mandate of the government. So in different countries, we've been told, that's okay, you'll have an allocation. We'll have enough allocation to operate Baie-Comeau and be profitable and be, in a position that we can leverage the profit being made there to open up and grow. So that's not an issue. But obviously, the goal is to attack that 96% that's not recycled, because that's free. That's free batteries. It's going to the landfill.
Yeah.
So
excellent. Okay, so let's jump into maybe a little more sensitive topic here. But you came from the banking industry. You've been very creative in raising money. How are you going to go about financing your phase 1 rollout?
Well, I'll correct you there. I came from the technology industry, but I've done investment banking and merchant banking for decades. So there's a few ways to go at it. I'll give you an example. One of the building we're looking at right now, and I'm always thinking as a tax lawyer, which I've never been a lawyer, never paid my fees, never did the bar, because I was already in business and doing other things. But anyway, I have a reflex on how to optimize these aspect of the process. And we go in, we buy a building. We've already been told by at least one bank and by a credit union that they will finance the building. So we can pay the building from the cash we have in the accounts right now, in the bank account of St. George, and then just remortgage it a minute after. But that would be crazy. The idea is to actually go and take an equity line of credit against the building as a collateral, and make sure that we identify that equity line of credit as an investment loan, and use that money to pay for the equipment. Because now that is 100% deductible, including the interest. So there's a few things like that can be done. And that's really the way that we're going to go at it. So you're looking at a capex of $10 million when it's fully deployed, and $5 million contingency. There's a good chance we're going to have to take a bit of the contingency because we're looking at a 2 to 3 year deployment of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But, or maybe not. But in any case, that we will build other plant elsewhere within that same period. There's no way that we're not breaking ground to a second plant in the tech plant within the 3 years. So we'll be in different location. So that means we're going to need to be able to finance these things. There's the government coming in. Most of it, if not all of it, looks like it's going to come, in terms of the significant amount, it's going to come from the city of Baie-Comeau, it's going to come from the 2 different government, and it's all discretionary. So I spoke already about, we talked earlier about the electrical connection and all that. That's a big amount. There was already budget for. So we know, if I'm really to look at it today, that 15 million is now 12 and a half. That's pretty much your hard cap now, because we already settled 2.5 out of this. And a lot of the things is we might say, okay, we spend this amount, but in reality, it all end up being debt on the books. And it's good debt, because it's debt that we know that, within a few years it's repaid. And we can take our time because the interest is deductible, because that's all, loan that we take to grow the business. So all in all, we will most probably have to get some cash from equity, but we're not talking about more than maybe two. I would say very conservatively, it's no more than 30%, so maybe 2 to 3, maybe $4 million out of it. And it's not all coming now. It's not all coming this year either. So as we go, we'll see also how much profit we make. It's right now all our assumption on base that we make no profit. That all of this, is in a, I would say, a conceptual market where we sit on our profit for years. We produce, but we produce without making profit. So all the assumptions have been done like this. So profit's going to change everything also. So as the profit come in, first we have access to more credit, but we can also use some of the profit to pay for the different expense. Now, one of the things also that people need to think about is the minute we start to get these infrastructure in place, building and stuff like that, even if we mortgage it to the maximum possible, it is still changing the dynamic, or changing a balance sheet. And that helps a lot with the maximum we can get in terms of loan guarantee from the different government. We've been told that we'll get these loan guarantee. That's not an issue. We do qualify. It is the type of business they want to be in, and they want to see people being successful at it.
Indeed. Okay, so we've seen some big investments, particularly from Glencore in Northern Ontario. There's a recent announcement today with LI Cycle, not to give a plug, but Frank, what kind of interest are you getting from blue chips?
The type that some of the companies were not allowed to mention their name at all. That's how the MNDA have been signed. Although I'm still allowed to make fun of some of their executive online. But apart from that, we cannot mention the company. There's an interest, there's a curiosity, I would say at this point, from a lot of blue chips. There's other blue chips that are straight up in collaboration with us right now, although confidentially. And it's some of them, it's because they don't necessarily want us. They want us to deliver. They're probably going to show their name and raise their hands, or they might be there at the opening of the plant. So they'll be very publicly known at that point. But some other is for strategic reason. There is a major tectonic shift in a lot of industry. If you look at the steel mill and the steel industry, the iron ore industry, the fertilizer industry, they're in bed with us. They've been in bed with us for a while, and they want everything to be hush-hush, because it's going to make a big difference. These people are some of the most polluting. I'm even going to mention the cement industry, so the concrete industry. These people now have to decarbonize, and they're struggling. They see the deadline of 2030, where they're supposed to be carbon neutral, and they need a solution fast, because by the time that you choose the technology, you choose the strategy you're going to use. We're in 2022, 2023. You have 7 years to deploy it. And in certain cases, that means that they will have, if they don't find a solution, they'll have to retool their whole plant. We're talking billions of dollars of investment. Now, guys like us, we come in from the left field, and now we're telling them, see that tailing that you have in your backyard, we can make money with this. And in exchange, we'll give you not free, but cheap hydrogen that will significantly reduce your carbon balance. And they more than disposed to listen to us and do a bunch of meetings and look at it and run a few tests. Why? They're putting money behind the tests right now. One, because they're doing it for every technology that might have a chance. So they're in the process. Our timing is perfect. They're in the process of looking at different technology, and we're one, or different solution, I would say, and we're one of the potential solution/technology out there. But it's also the fact that they're not in competition with us. They could care less that we, recycle batteries. And even if we produced nickel, then we're just a supplier for them to do ferro-nickel. They're just more than happy to have another source, more competition. So there's a lot of very serious business being done right now. And when I say very serious, is that it is advanced. The discussions are high level, and they want to keep that under wrap. And they're going to keep that under wrap until they get a few ministers at their plant and cut the ribbon. Because they don't want the competition to have an edge on them. Because some of these guys, they won't be in business in 7 years from now. Because they won't be able to adapt. They won't be able to make the cut. And you're going to see some of these business closing in between now and then.
So I was going to end this on asking you about rollouts, what you're thinking for timelines. I hate asking about timelines because people tend to hold you to whatever you say as gospel. But let's just drift away from that for a second, because you mentioned something else: processing other people's tailings. This is something that Enrico and I discussed many years ago, actually, and he's kind of talked about different locations around the globe that this is an opportunity to capitalize on. And I think this is something that's not very often talked about when in relation to St. George. But you did mention recently that you're going to be testing the sediments produced from geothermal power in Iceland. I just want to pick your brain. I'm sorry, I know we're going off topic, but do you have any updates on that?
Well, it is a tricky thing, because from the get-go, the tailings that comes out of the geothermal operation is the reason that attracted me to Iceland. I would recall, over a decade ago, being at the Blue Lagoon and looking at people putting the mud on their face and whatnot. And my main interrogation was, where the hell is this mud coming from? And what's in it? Until one of the employees pointed to me to the industrial plant that was up the hill. So that's the reject. There's nothing natural about this. We're pumping out of the ground from a geothermal well. So I got some of the samples, and we figured out what was the grade in that thing. And sorry. So we were able to test them and realize, there's concentrate of very good material there. And also, the water itself has lithium and other mineral in suspension. So it's two different ways to go at it. Going at what's in the wellhead, what's into the historical tailings, and also filtering that water to get access to the lithium. So we got samples, finally. We're talking 15 years later, we got samples from some of these energy producers. Now, in Iceland, we have mineral rights. But we have been told very clearly, and they've been very firm on this, that we are not there to disturb the crown jewel, which is the geothermal energy producer. So we're not there we don't have dominion over there, we don't have priority over them. It's more the opposite. If we're to drill at a place where there's potential economical reservoir, it's more complicated for us. So it took years to get to an agreement or understanding between us and the government, and then being able to move on the energy producer to say, that tailing that you have there, which is a problem for you, because that one day that tailing is going to reach its maximum capacity that you've been permitted for, and you're going to have to go back into public hearing and environmental study and this and that. So instead, if we come in and we just get rid of it for you, that could be a lot more interesting. And obviously, when I say get rid of it, it's not like in the Italian mob movie where they're just going to go and dump it somewhere where nobody sees it. It's actually to process it, render it neutral, or render it, sterile, and extract the metal out of it. So we've done the test. We've done the sampling out of different tailings and bore head or well head. And we're waiting for results there. Right now in this business, give you an example about Manicouagan. We're still waiting for the majority of our results. We're looking at material that was shipped late last year after it's been prepared, and we're not even talking about the stuff that was taken out by chopper in February, March, which was the last batch of core that we got out of the project. But that's probably the funnel, the biggest funnel or biggest delay for the whole industry across the board. It's these labs. They're overwhelmed.
Right.
They don't have much manpower. Which also, that's one of the comments I was saying for the first phase of the battery recycling. We've moved into a model where we have sensors and enterprise resource planning software that we're adapting for these plans. So eventually, when we license the technology, if one day we do so, we'll be able to sell a turnkey plant with all the equipment, plus with remote control and remote, I would say, intervention possible, remote monitoring of the plant. So that means that you have a lot less employees, and you mitigate this difficulty that you have in many regions where manpower is scarce.
Interesting. Okay, rapid fire. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions just to wrap this up. Instead of talking rollout, I get a good sense that you're going to be rolling out your first plant in the next few months. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to move into a few other areas. I know we were supposed to focus on battery recycling, but people are curious. When do you hope to be drilling again in Manicouagan?
This year, but I don't know when.
Well, yeah,
I don't know when.
Come on. What's the snow situation up there? Are you hopeful, like within the next month or so?
The story in Baie-Comeau was funny is that just north of Julie, and Julie is a place where you get a lot of snow. There's a corridor there between two chains of hill. You saw the place, but there's two chains of hill, probably apart from 40, 60 kilometers, where you get some of the highest amount of snow. The biggest amount of snow in Quebec. And it's the perfect situation. You're just off the maritime climate. You're inland a bit more, a little bit higher also. And before you start to get to the northern area where it's a lot colder. And just the week before we went to Baie-Comeau, so 2 weeks ago, another drilling company went to do some geophysics on surface. And when they got off the helicopter, one of the guys fell to his shoulder in the snow. So that tells you how it is. It goes fast, though. The rivers are big. The snow is melting. But we're about to get end of May, early June will be mud season. There's a 2 week there that you don't want to move heavy equipment, excavator, drills, and all that because you're going to lose them. And you're going to destroy the road for no reason. But I would say Julie, we expect to probably be on Julie first, end of June. And it's a matter of reopening everything, camp, and going back to check what the state of what happened during the winter, and then Julie's going to have a lot of work. We need to go at this porphyry system that's been identified, go confirm or not that it's there for real, and with that secondary system identified and probably I would say delineated. We'll have an idea of how we can access or address the high-grade lens or high-grade corridor that we're finding them there. And that, in that case, probably we might drill before or after hunting season on Julie. But there'll be a lot of surface work on Julie this year. It's a complex system to understand, and it might be multiple systems side by side, multiple geological systems side by side. If we go to Manicouagan, I'm expecting that drilling will resume in July there. It could be a little bit before, it could be a bit after, but same thing there. We have surface work to be done in geology. So before we run, mud season is in June over there, where the water is still going to be high. So we're going to go back end of May, early June to just reopen the camp and move things around, prepare the pads for the drill, and as the ground firm up, we'll be able to start to drill. The drill is already on site, so the drill has been in standby over there, and we're bringing a second drill, and we're also bringing geophysics company So there'll be 3D modelization, stuff like that. Some drill holes will be done to support the geophysical effort also.
Perfect segue to my next question. You talked about, developing some 3D modeling, some cross sections, maybe some more drill maps and locations to kind of paint the bigger picture of what Manicouagan can be, and potentially Julie, you did the geophysics. Do you have any hopes to release any of that information to the market in the coming weeks, months?
Well, we already have the majority of the results from Manicouagan is still not known. So we release a small section of one hole so far. So
yeah,
expect it's probably all going to come within a month and a half. So we should have a lot of big press release with a lot of data in it, and we'll have a better idea. We're starting to understand some section of Manicouagan, and there's phenomenon there that we're starting also to see that. The PGs, for example, are not necessarily moving all the time with the nickel. There seem to be, like the same thing for Julie, where there seem to be two types of nickel that coexist. And sometimes one is higher, and then the PGs drop to nothing. And then when this one drops down, PG goes to the roof. So we're establishing correlations still. We're really at the early stage on both these projects. It could go faster. If you look at there's a reason when we said that we had established a corridor, and we start to talk about continuity, and we had Herb Duer, who's the president, who was a geologist, and Herb has like 4 years of experience, if not more. And Herb has made some discovery in the past, and there's stuff that he's been involved with that's in production, and he's extremely conservative, probably the most conservative of all of us. And Herb is the one that said, we'll explain the discovery. And I had to stop and said, Herb, you're using the term discovery. He said, yeah, we're good. It's big enough now. We can call it a discovery. And so we're running, you know that we're running numbers internally that we're not allowed, because of the 4301 rules, we're not allowed to disclose. But for a guy like that to use the term discovery, it's because now, that it's green line to go pedal to the metal to really accelerate this. And what made the big determination is that I still believe that Manicouagan is potentially a big nickel, cobalt, copper, potentially deposit or resource. But it's the PGEs. The PGEs are everywhere. Even when the nickel drops, and even in the different type of rocks, different type of boundaries to the current system, we still find low-grade PGEs at kilometers away. So, and as you come closer, these PGEs goes up, and they're everywhere. Even in an area where
sorry, go ahead.
Even in an area where it's dry, we've got some dry hole historically for nickel. And you've seen the core, you've seen the 5 kilometers or 5,000 meters of core that we had brought into La Baie. I know you took some pictures of it and you saw it, but you saw that most of it was not sample. So historically, they were looking visually, is there sulfide or sulfur into the core? And if yes, let's test it with nickel alert or with some powder to confirm that there's nickel. And if there's confirmation, okay, that section is going to the lab. But there is section, and we're talking meters upon meters, where it barely tests for nickel. So we're using the XRF or the XFR and the gun, the radiometric gun. We're able to confirm there's nickel, low-grade nickel, that's not detectable by the powder or other methods that historically was used. But then suddenly we were getting significant grades of PGEs in it. That was never sampled. So we might end up, and that's what we came to the conclusion currently. If you ask us, how would you define Manicouagan right now? It is a PG, it's potentially a PG deposit, and a big one. And then we might be surprised to also realize that it coexists with a big nickel deposit.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty excited by that 2 meters of the one hole, but I mean, ultimately, I want to see what the rest of these holes look like. So I'm very much looking
forward. You've been to Sudbury. You've seen these things. It's close to surface. It's a continuous corridor. We intercept it. That's what people need to understand. That doesn't mean that it's 2 meters large. That's the interception. It could be 20 meters large. It's a matter of how the drill attacks it. But the fact that it's starting at 30, 40 meters from surface and up to surface in some area, we're not talking open pit. So we're not talking massive dilutions of a lot of rocks around that needs to be moved. It's a smaller footprint as a mine, as a potential mine. And it could be probably mine, as adits, corridor that at an angle, you start from surface and you just go down at an angle. And you're that, different place. But
Frank, let's not kid anybody. You could even find a source that's feeding all of this as well and come into a nice little blob, but it's early to say that.
That's the goal. You're looking at it right now in some countries, in some area, for some companies, this would be considered a deposit. And they would stop doing exploration drill holes. They'd be into the infill to be able to come up to a 4201 resource. And I understand the dynamic of that. But we are convinced internally that this is connected, that what we see right now is the smoke. We've not touched the fire just yet.
Well, I hope you're right when you say that. Now, I know I've kept you for almost an hour. Frank, we're gonna finish this off, and I'm gonna open the floor to you. Is there anything you'd like to say to your shareholders or potential investors looking at St. George as an investment opportunity?
I think at this time, like we've seen this company up and down. I don't like to comment in the market. That's the one thing we don't have control over. But this company is so different from what it used to be. Even a year ago. We're not even a year and a half at the mark of where somebody told us, guys, you could do batteries, and we're going to have a plant this year. We're ordering equipment. We're buying land. We're buying buildings. And we're in a process also of hiring all these other people, public relation, governmental relations, specialists, all the marketing, all the information's material is all being redone. The branding is being redone. So we'll now be in a position where we're going to have material to explain where we're going. People will start to understand we're not an EV recycling company. We're not an exploration company. What we're building right now, everything is intertwined. It's a turnkey complete solutions. And we're going to be critical metal, critical mineral commodity traders. And that's the idea, is to become, we could bring concentrate from other people. Our process is that good, is that it makes sense for us, especially the minute we have a plant. Right now, going to see them, so take a chance on us, send us some material, we can get a few tons. They're happy. It's cute, but it's a lab experiment. They're saying that, okay, your process is able to, and you're projecting what your cost will be. But we don't know your costs because we don't know your CapEx. The minute that we have the plant in Baie-Comeau, and then we have the second plant after, now we can tell these guys, send us, 5,000 tons. Send us a boat. Send us 20, 40,000 tons. We'll process it on the basis of a profit sharing. And you're going to see a lot more initiative coming like that. So at the end of the day, what do we want to do? We want to be the people that can sell nickel, cobalt, copper, up to magnesium in some case, because we have that in some of these batteries. We have it on jewelry. And being able to provide solution to the industry. And not being attached in some long-term offtake agreement in the business we want to be, that would just kill us. I'm the one that is probably putting his veto forward on every initiative like that of having an offtake, a firm offtake, even for the aluminum right now and the steel. The agreement we have, our first right of refusal, and that's how we disclose it. We don't want to have a firm price set that they can force us to sell us the material in a commodity market like it is right now. where commodities are getting scarcer and scarcer, and the price just keep going up on average. So we want to have the maximum flexibility in being able to sit even on these commodities, still breaking even just by selling the stuff, the basic stuff, and the high price or the high margin material, we're able to speculate on it and then sell it when spot market is where we want it to be.
Perfect. I think that sums it up pretty nicely, Frank. I could keep you on for hours. Maybe one of these days we'll have to plan one of these for a couple-hour discussion, since you have so much going on. But today we'll cut it off here. We'll do this again soon. I'm your host, Mike Coyle. You've been listening to Inside Exploration Twitter Spaces. Today's guest was Frank Dumas, the COO of St. George Eco Mining. Again, if you're interested, you can find the company on the CSE under SX or the OTC under SXOOF. Frank, thanks again for joining me today.
No problem. We'll do it again. Bye.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning into our Twitter space today. If you enjoyed the content of our show, please subscribe to our channel and follow us at insidexploration.com. If you're looking for our social media handles, they can be found in the description below. Thanks again for joining us. I'm your host, Mike Coyle, and you're watching Inside Exploration.